All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about Stephen Jones, some comments that he made recently, just regarding you know the Cowboys star players, and they're trying to keep all these guys, but it's going to be tough. So I just wanted to get into what he had to say. So he said regarding well, actually, talking about Mike McCarthy first, because Mike McCarthy's on the last year of his contract. But yeah, so this is what he said. He said, "Well, those things take time." Uh, this is what he said on the Scoop City podcast via the Athletic, and he said, "And we're talking about deals here. When you're talking about CeeDee and Dak, and somebody like Micah coming up. I mean, you're talking about two players that aren't quarterbacks that feel like they ought to be a little bit like the Vikings' Justin Jefferson, the top paid non-quarterbacks in the league. And then, of course, you have Dak. Obviously, his resume speaks for itself. He was second in MVP voting last year. He's just an extraordinary. He's just had an extraordinary career here in Dallas. And those things just take time when you're talking about the amount of money involved. And of course, we're trying a little bit play Houdini and how to keep all those guys around Dak and keep these players we were fortunate enough to draft. And I think that he did say they're having those conversations with Dak's agent in the article that I have here. And then he also said, when you start stacking them up like that, it's a challenge. It's not that it's not doable, but you certainly got to have some give and take if you want to do that. We got a lot of guys making, quite a bit of money, and that's no excuses. That's no excuses. We think we can get these done. No, we can get it done, but it just takes time, which is true. I do I do agree with that, but yeah, I'm just curious, as to how this is going to play out. I mean, they do want to keep Dak, but is Dak going to end up leaving? And I know his family members kind of want him to leave Dallas, I believe. Yeah, right now he's in the final year of his contract, and his cap hit is $55 million, which is 21.2% of the team's cap. CeeDee Lamb's in the final year of his contract. He's making $17.9 million, and then Micah Parsons has 2 years remaining on his contract. Now, I've said all along that I think Dak is probably going to end up leaving, but again, who knows? That's just the way things are going. That's how I feel. Dak right now is tied as the 12th highest paid quarterback with Daniel Jones. And he led the league with 36 touchdown passes last season. CeeDee Lamb, 135 receptions. His salary right now is outside the top 20 for wide receivers. So he wants to get in, not just like the top 10 or the top 5. He wants to be like the top 2. He wants to be the number 1 guy. And based off of the season that he had, I mean, I know I said I don't think he's going to get Justin Jefferson type money because that's just me thinking, well, I think Justin Jefferson is better than CeeDee Lamb. But CeeDee Lamb could eclipse that and become the highest paid receiver in the league. And then some other players that are making a lot of money. So DeMarcus Lawrence, $20.4 million against the cap. Zach Martin, $15.5 million. And Trayvon Diggs, $14.1 million. So those are just some other notable players. And Trayvon Diggs, of course, is coming back from injury last year, tore his ACL, which was, it's a big piece on their defense. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's really going to be tough. I mean, Micah Parsons right now, he's going to be dealt with last because, there's still some time. But he wants his new deal. CeeDee Lamb, I mean, I've said all along the Cowboys are trying to make him a priority. He's the priority right now. They're trying to get a deal done with him. And then I guess they'll focus on Dak and see if they can get a deal done with him. But I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case. If he's going to end up staying. I think, like I said, I think ultimately what's going to end up happening is he's going to leave and he's going to go somewhere else. And there'll be spots that open up that I'm sure he's gonna find a job, no problem. Because teams always need a quarterback. So, and who's going to be the team that'd be willing to pay him the money that he wants? And I know Dak in some interviews, has talked about how he doesn't have to be the highest paid quarterback, But he wants to get paid a lot of money. And I don't think Dak. I think Dak deserves to get paid, of course, but I mean, I don't look at him as one of the top guys. There are quarterbacks that I would rank ahead of him. You know, but I don't think he deserves, top dollar and be the highest paid quarterback. I just don't. I think he's a solid quarterback, and and I've said that I wasn't always a big Dak guy. And you could say, well, it's because you're a Giant fan. No, it's just for me, Dak's a good regular season quarterback. You get to the postseason and he just doesn't get it done. He's got 2 playoff wins in 8 years. I mean, he's kind of having the same career that Tony Romo had, where you put up good numbers in the regular season, you get to the playoffs, and then nothing happens. That's kind of how I view him. But you know what? You could say that about a lot of guys. Do well in the regular season, get to the postseason, and they can't get the job done. And he is one of those guys that falls in that category. And I think the Cowboys, they've had a lot of talent on this team ever since he took over as the starting quarterback back in 2016. Now, I feel like offensively, especially going into this year, like, yeah, of course, you have CeeDee Lamb, who is, a top 2 wide receiver in the league. But, in years past, the Cowboys have had more talent. I mean, I think, trading away Amari Cooper and now losing Tony Pollard, you look at this running game, I mean, who's going to step up? I know they brought back Zeke, but Zeke is not the same player that he once was. I think the Cowboys' offense is still going to be good. I mean, you got Brandon Cooks, Jacob Ferguson. The Cowboys, like I've always said, the Cowboys always seem to have a good tight end. But I don't know. For me, it's CeeDee Lamb, and then it's a lot of it's question marks. I mean, you got Brandon Cooks, like I said, but Brandon Cooks is getting older. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like from when Dak first started to now, like that 2016 offense, with Dez Bryant and prime Zeke and the offensive line when it was still intact, because it's different now. Now you got no more Tyron Smith. It's just Zach Martin from that offensive line, because they had Travis Frederick, who retired, Tyron Smith, like I said. I think that, yeah, Doug Free was on the 2016 team. I know he's on the 2014 offensive line, but yeah, it's just guys have left or retired. That offensive line's different now, and they had Biotish go to the Commanders. So, it's just it's the offensive line. It's got some moving pieces, and I know they had to address the offensive line in the draft. But yeah, I don't know. Looking at this Cowboys offense, it's going to be good, but I still have there's some guys that are going to have to step up. So we'll see how that ends up going. But right now there is no. The Cowboys are working on these things behind closed doors. Right now there's no real updates, but they're having conversations with Dak. They want to make CeeDee Lamb a priority, which I've talked about already on the show before. So it's just more waiting. That's really what it is. It's just more waiting. And I know some of you are probably getting sick of me being repetitive, but that's what happens, especially in the off season, because we get to certain points where it's just there's nothing going on, and just got to continue to play that waiting game until something does end up happening. So that's what we're going to continue to do. But you just hope that, Dak is going to play. He's not going to hold out, and I don't believe. But CeeDee Lamb, it's possible he holds out, even though he has said he's not going to. But you don't want any of this leaking into the regular season, which I don't think it's going to. Now, I know what was a problem for the Cowboys is, waiting to pay CeeDee Lamb, because you had all of these receivers get paid, and now CeeDee Lamb's like, well, I want to get what they got. So that kind of hurt them. But that's really my thoughts on it. We just, like I said, we just got to continue to play that waiting game. But if they get CeeDee Lamb done, that's at least one step forward. And then I guess they'll work on Dak. And if they can't get to an agreement with him, then they're going to have to go in a different direction at quarterback. And I know Trey Lance's name has been floating around because they brought him in. And that could end up being the backup plan if Dak does not stay with the Cowboys. But maybe he ends up with the Giants. If the Giants ended up signing Dak, which I don't think would happen, I don't know how it would feel. I mean, he would be the Giants' starting quarterback, so I mean, you got to root for him. But it would just be very strange if that did end up happening. Because I know, looking at like a possible, articles that have come out with possible destinations for Dak, the Giants were on a list because who knows what's going to happen with Daniel Jones, who is another guy that we will talk about a little later in the show as well. So, like I said, we just got to continue to play that waiting game, folks. It's just I keep repeating myself with certain guys in certain situations, but that's just how it is right now. So we just got to continue to play that waiting game. But let me know what you guys think. How do you see all this playing out with the Cowboys? Do you think they're going to be able to keep everybody, or is someone leaving? And again, I think it's Dak at the moment. So we're going to actually, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys again, tip or donating and your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, that is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll talk about some comments made by John Harbaugh on Lamar Jackson. We talked about Lamar Jackson a little bit before. Just talk about him as well as the Ravens going into the 2024 season, but particularly what he had to say about Lamar Jackson and about possibly being the greatest ever. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.